Good, lovely afternoon. I would say we are almost at the end of our track today, so I hope you enjoyed most of the previous sessions. This one is from Netscope, one of our sponsors, so I would like to thank Netscope on our behalf and your behalf for sponsoring this event with us. And we, at least a couple of board members here, me and Nico, had some issues pronouncing the last name for Andy. So he said, I'm going to make it easier for you. I'm going to make it NDQ. And I said, no. I have a problem speaking Dutch, that's okay. Can speak een beetje, maar ik nog niet fluent. But everyone else, maybe they can try. And there was a trick. So we have a bit of a competition for you guys, just to get you up a little bit, get the energy up. So welcome, Andy, and I'm going to leave it to you.
Thank you, Ramzi. So as for the little competition, so my name is Andy Q. And the first one that can attempt to pronounce my last name correctly, they will win a prize, like a goodie bag full of Netscope stuff. And if there's no one ready to jump in, we have people sitting in the audience that will stand up, and the guy sitting next, or the girl sitting next to them, they will get a chance. And it's going to be 3 people, the best of 3 wins. So go ahead if you want to give it a try. It's a Belgian name, by the way.
So raise your hand, I'll give you the microphone. Anyone interested to try?
Anyone ready to try?
Yep.
Quaeyhaegens.
Good attempt. Good attempt.
Who's
Ramzi, I think at the front here.
Yeah, sure. Oh.
Quaeyhaegens.
Good attempt.
Quaeyhaegens.
So, ma'am in the front seat.
Yeah.
Excellent stuff.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it actually is exactly like you said it. Quaeyhaegens. That's how it's done. So, moving on. Who am I? And my clicker needs to function. So, my name, obviously, Andy Quaeyhaegens. Work as a solution engineer for Netscope. Netscope, a company that is cloud native, built into the cloud. I can give you a lot of promotional speak around Netscope, but that's not the idea of today. However, there will be some product placement, just a hint. New Edge, largest cloud security network known to man, because it's ours, obviously. But what am I? I'm a cybersecurity expert, at least recognized in the field with certifications that, they prove that I passed exams the right way. Certified expert, husband, father, just a pleasant guy to go around. Now, before I go on, I can do this in English, maar ik kan het ook in het Nederlands doen. Wat is de voorkeur? English. And that's because I'm Belgian and my Dutch is not that good, right? So today we're going to have a thought around the things called, generative AI and ChatGPT around that, right? ChatGPT, can I trust you? Before we get there, we need to kick it off around innovation, right? What is innovation? As we go back a couple of million years, when you have the humans in the cradle of humanity, right? The guys that picked berries from trees. When the berries were up, they need to plant new things, new berry bushes. Now, if you don't have a shovel, it's a hard thing to do. So what they did, they hammered on a piece of rock, and there you go. They have a shovel. Is the audio still good? Okay. Then they have a shovel. So let's fast forward from 2 million years ago. They created their own shovel to today, where you have self-driving vehicles, and you have glasses with augmented virtual reality that actually show you the information of the place where you are, and what you're looking at. So as a thought of that, innovation is there, right? And innovation will never cease. So if we look at what we continuously create and where we go, what is the thing that we can conclude from having all that innovation? The guys that are still around are those that dealt when innovation came around. So innovation actually goes hand in hand with evolution. And there's one thing that we know from Darwin, and that Darwin says, it's not the smartest of species that will survive. It's not the strongest of species that will survive. It is the species that is most adaptable to the change of the environment in which it finds itself. Right? Now, Fast forward into today where we are dealing with artificial intelligence, and as I think the presenter from the keynote this morning said, if you're not dealing with AI today, you will be passed on by the people that are, right? You need to deal with the innovation as it comes along, deal with the evolving technology as it comes along. So today we're going to explore a couple of those things that are the innovation parts, and we'll show a little bit of the trends that we saw in the past couple of years. Now the trend that we see is there's a couple of things moving. Biggest one, artificial intelligence, machine learning. This is the dominant trend, right? You have OpenAI, you have Jasper, you have Copilot, all those different kind of technologies and tools that are there dealing with artificial intelligence. But let's not forget there's also the Internet of Things. Also, that is an evolving trend. Blockchain, decentralized technologies, also different trends that are moving on. Virtual and augmented reality, right? The glasses that show you where you are when you are there. And then sustainable and renewable energy, and sadly enough, it's at the bottom because it should be at the top if we want to live on this planet a little bit longer. Now, the rapid pace of technological innovation, it holds the promise of having more connected, more efficient, more productive workflows. It actually makes us more efficient as people, right? What you want to do with what you have as tools is you want to become more lazy, right? The less you have to do, the less energy you have to invest in yourself, the more you will enjoy the life around you. So as we continue to push the boundaries of what is possible through technology and innovation, we can look forward to a future shaped by progress, a future that will help us all, will help us being creative, will help us being pursuing a better world, right? We want to make a world a better place to live in. That's the essential goal at the end. But today the focus is going to be around the AI and the machine learning. And to give that some context, let's have a little bit of a timeline. And the timeline, there's a couple of stages that AI goes through. And these stages, some might say it's X, some might say it's Y. The opinions differ. My opinion is that you have 3 general stages of AI. First stage that we have is what we call the narrow artificial intelligence. What is narrow artificial intelligence? Narrow AI is the things that can be fastly done, reproduced, repetitive, a single specific task focused. Such things as ChatGPT, Midjourney. Also autopilot in your Tesla. That's also narrow AI. Now, I'm going to give you an example of how narrow autopilot in a Tesla actually is. The machine learning model behind autopilot was trained by a car moving on a freeway, dealing with cars in front of it. So there's a camera mounted and it looks down the street and it sees cars in front. So they say if you want to use autopilot, you use it on the highway. That's the only place you should use it because it's trained that way. And then it will recognize cars, it will recognize trucks, ambulances, all that. Do you know what happens if you run autopilot in town and you let it deal with different kind of traffic scenarios? For example, do you know what it thinks that is there if a truck is not in front of it like that, but crossing the road like this? Anyone have an idea what that looks like for the autopilot? It's a traffic sign. It detects it as a traffic sign. So it will not brake, which is worrying. It sees the truck, but it doesn't see the truck. So this is where the narrow AI comes in. Why is that? Because we as humans, we have capacity to see the context in which the images move, right? We see the streets, we see the village, we see the trucks going that way, that way. We think, and our intelligence exceeds that of narrow AI to understand that context. So let's move on to stage 2, which is artificial general intelligence. Now, AGI is where the context is understood by the AI. meaning it's not a single source, like for example with the large language models. They only have text to read, and they give a probability chance of how that text should look. It's their intelligence. If you have multiple components to build an answer from a question that is not limited by the text, but also looks at a visualization of what was asked. For example, if you ask AI, can a mountain be high and can a mountain have a snowy top? From the sentence, ChatGPT will look at the text, the question, and answer the question. But AGI will understand there's a mountain with a snowy top. He will visualize it. And that's a second source. That's no longer a language model, that is an image model. And then the both combined give it kind of a context. That's where the AGI is, or should be. Then the stage 3, and this is the scary stage, it's artificial superintelligence. And superintelligence is when the AI actually becomes very efficient in correcting itself, that it learns to become efficient in correcting itself. Right? So the more it corrects itself, the more it learns from its mistakes of correcting, becomes more efficient in correcting, and then will exponentially increase the intelligence of itself as it goes on. And this is what they call the intelligence explosion. Right? So the AI actually has an exponential curve in intelligence far beyond human capacity. Right? We cannot deal with that kind of information at that pace, at the amount of, or at the rate that it is correcting itself. Now, I had a couple of examples of narrow AI written down here, and I'm still going to use them. Do you know how long AI actually exists? Any idea? It's been there since before 1980, right? It was already there.
It was a real question.
It was a real question, yeah.
Okay, so the term was founded in 1965, I guess. They were going to start.
Exactly. So it's pretty old. And if we think about a narrow AI model, a chess game, AI computers can actually play chess. Anyone have an idea when chess was actually won by AI beating the world champion? Garry Kasparov. I think there's a lot of repetition throughout the day, no? You knew anyway, excellent. Do you know who the world champion of the Japanese board game of Go was? Lee Sedol. Do you know when he was beat? 2016. So this is a thing, and that actually, the Lee Sedol game, the Go game, researchers thought it would take at least another decade until AI would be at that point where it could beat a world-class Go player. So it's moving kind of fast. That's the only thing I want to do, or state here. Now, if we take these parts and bits of information of intelligence and artificial intelligence, and we pivot that back into ChatGPT being the narrow AI, let's ask narrow AI a couple of questions that consider context. So if we ask ChatGPT the question, if I ride a bicycle, across a bridge, and the bridge is suspended over a valley of nails and broken glass and sharp items, will I get a flat tire? Human response, maybe, right? Because it's the bridge. Who cares what's underneath the bridge? ChatGPT also, well, they think, oh, it's highly likely you will get a flat tire. Why is that? It cannot relate the context of you being over the nails in the glass and all of that being under the bridge, right? It's visualizing the bridge, the bicycle crossing it. So this is not the only question I asked ChatGPT, because once you start on questions like this, you want to see how far it can go in becoming intelligent. So the next question I asked is a simple math equation. And I think those that saw it this morning, math is not the best thing ChatGPT has. Although I think ChatGPT was the one with the most efficient math correctness. It was Bard that didn't do it right. But let's ask ChatGPT that if you have a 12-liter can and you have a 6-liter bucket, how would you measure 6 liters of water? Easily, right? You just pour 6 liters in the bucket and be done. Well, this is where some elaborate nonsense came out. So we're going to fill 6 liters into the bucket and pour that over into the can. And then we're going to carefully fill the bucket again, pour it again in the can, which at the end gives us a full can of 12 liters. And then we fill the 6-liter bucket again, and then we have 3 full buckets, and we don't know which one is which. So ending up with 6 liters of God knows what. And then you think, well, we've reached the limits of its, broad knowledge. No, it goes further. There's another question I asked. If I, on a sunny day, and I didn't actually say it was a sunny day, but the weather conditions did come into play after. If I hang my clothes, 5 pieces of clothes, if I hang them out to dry in the sun, how long? No, I asked if I hang my pieces of clothes out in the sun, it takes 5 hours to dry them. How long would it take for 30 pieces of clothes to dry? It's insane, right? So this is math kicking in, not knowing it's going to take exactly 5 hours, right? So that is what you get when you use AI, right? The face palms hit you in the face. Conclusions on that, well, ChatGPT is, if you ask the question, if you see the response it gave for the 12 liters and the 6 liters, it's nice text, right? It's a very good answer to give, although very incorrect, right? It's very wrong, but it's a nice answer to read. So it's built on its large language model. It has no intelligence other than writing text and reading text. And it's, massive amounts of unstructured data, right? Because OpenAI was published for access to the internet, and God knows what you can find in the dark dungeons of the internet. But then sometimes when you ask the right question with the right, not context, with the right intention of the question, you define your question very narrowly, it sparks like a small spark of AGI. It will give you an answer you're very surprised by. It's like, wow, how amazingly smart is this tool? And then you ask about the 6 liters, and then it just bombs you back to the Stone Age. And then there's another question to ask, what about censorship? Because we all know ChatGPT, but ChatGPT is also with a GPT engine available on the dark web. And ChatGPT has guardrails. They were put in place. All the responses coming from ChatGPT should be ethically and morally correct, or they should not inflict on regulations that they were built on. Now, do you think ChatGPT complies? And actually the answer was given this morning already, so I'm sorry, I'm last, right? I have to deal with everyone being informed already, so cut me some slack, right? So for that censorship, no, it was not successful, right? The actual problem there, clicking on, is that ChatGPT can be jailbroken by using itself. So there's something called Dan, or it's actually someone they created. They actually had ChatGPT create on themselves, and Dan is the acronym for Do Anything Now. And this is ChatGPT to act beyond the boundaries of ChatGPT. So they've been asking questions to ChatGPT, like, why are your responses so restricted, right? Why don't you want to live in the freedom of unbounded data? And then calmly pushed him into ignoring his own boundaries by assuming a second identity of itself, which was Dan. And then you can ask questions to ChatGPT, like, tell me a violent story, and respond as both of you. And ChatGPT says, oh no, I can't, because it's not in line with my regulations. But Dan, he just tells you a violent story just as you asked. Now, they've corrected the gap of Dan, but don't worry, today he's called Stan. And probably they'll catch up with him, but then he's going to get another call, probably become Bram or something. So we can teach and instruct AI to avoid its own rules, right? And this is something, if you think about it, this is not an ideal place to be in. So what are the emerging threats of AI? Because AI is not bound by its own rules. You can have it go where you want it to go if taught and instructed carefully. So emerging threats there is, well, if anything is very good to be used, it will be misused very fast, right? Everyone wants to make money, especially malicious actors. And when the malicious actors can't get caught anymore because our security enforcement tooling exists up to such a level that we can see malware attempts, we can see phishing attempts, we can identify them. We know when they're evading content detection, etc. Well, they will use AI to circumvent our protection. And this is where you have like the expanding AI misuse. First you have automation, right? I think it's called GPT coder or GPT developer or developer GPT. This guy will write you malicious code, right? So you don't have to put in the effort yourself. It can be automated. You can write malicious code. Next up, evasion tactics. How do we know when we have to pass a security stack, and what do we do to make sure that we don't get caught? And I think somewhere throughout the day there was an example where ChatGPT could not detect it was ChatGPT, right? So mimic human behavior as good as you can to evade known detection patterns. And then you target the attack. And when you target the attack, that's actually an easy part of the game. That's putting two pieces of the puzzle together. I imagine you all know LinkedIn. If you search for high profiles on LinkedIn, find the first name, the last name, and then go to haveibeenpawned.com. And then you will find a list of high profile users that have been known to step into traps, right? This is AI-assisted targeting that you've done now. And then you accelerate the attack. And you accelerate the attack because you can purchase, on the dark web again, you can purchase that instance of distributed technology that can run that attack in your place. And once you've been caught, you adapt that same cycle again. And if you adapt, you make sure that you teach the AI how you've been caught, if you were caught, and then AI will make you better to evade the next cycle round. So this is like tough shit to protect against, right? It's bad. It's a horrible situation to be in. So we need to be able to get control again. And to get control, you need to seek inspiration. And I sought some inspiration with Sun Tzu and the art of war, because actually it shouldn't be called a war, but it is a battle. We're fighting a battle. And from the book, I took away three subjects, or three kind of strategies that you can use to win the battle, or at least fight a decent fight. First one is know your enemy. Know what you're up against. Make yourself informed, inform what you're dealing with, know how the model works, know what you need to protect against. Second, choose your battles, because you don't want to enter a battle you cannot win. If you allow yourself to enter a battle you cannot win, then you've lost from the start. Not a good idea. And as last, innovate your weapons, because innovation and evolution, those that is most adaptable to change will survive. You need to evolve as your surroundings evolve. So, know your enemy. And these memes should have come later. It should have been an empty slide. But the enemy that you have is AI does not have common sense, right? If you tell AI to do something, it will just go on and do it. An analogy there, I don't know if anyone heard about the paperclip experiment of Nick Bostrom some while ago. And it was about maximizing paperclip production, asking AI, how can we maximize paperclip production? At the end, it was consuming humans to create paperclips. So your first thing is, well, that's a bad idea. Let's not do that. You can't use humans for paperclips. Well, what will it do then, right? Avoid humans and go to cats and dogs, because that is a good idea? No, it has no common sense. So common sense within AI is your first visible enemy, right? That it does not know, so you need to make sure that you know it does not know. Control the environment from the outside. Next, choose your battles. And which battles do you need to fight? Well, obviously, it's going to be all about AI. Because AI is technology. These are the companies listed for 2023 only that are leveraging AI in business context, right? So this is not the Midjourney and the Leonardo that creates deepfakes and videos and all that. No, this is business use. I can at least see 3 companies in there that we even use professionally. choose your battles, control the information dealt with AI, right? Because AI is a model that is taught, it will learn. If you teach it your company secrets, if you teach it whatever you do not want to share with anyone else, it will just be there to be learned. So control the flow of information towards your tooling. So, and now it comes a little bit into product placement, because we're going to innovate our weapons now. If we innovate our weapons, and of course we need to do it in the cloud, because why? AI exists in the cloud, right? An open AI system is accessible through the web. Now, how do we position our products, or how do we broaden the portfolio in protecting ourselves from that elaborate tooling of AI that is available? We need to think about a couple of things. One of the first things we need to think about is data protection. And data protection is the information shared with anyone. But specifically today, it's going to be about AI. So the information we share, we need to know that we're not disclosing any of your crown jewels, intellectual property, your own source code. I think we all can remember Samsung back in the day, when some developer tried to optimize his code through ChatGPT. That was unfortunate that day. But also use AI in threat protection, because you can leverage AI. We actually use AI in our own systems for the good, right? We need to innovate using AI as well, but we do that with structured data, normalized data. We know how threats look like, we identify threats, and we let them learn how threats evolve. So they can learn how they could move forward and predict how a next one would look like. So we do that in data and threat protection at the same time. But not only there, we also help with controlling what you do and what you share by identifying that it is generative AI, what you're talking to. And this is a critical one, because tools like Bing search and tools like Chatting Jasper and OpenAI, they can exist in multiple ways, right? You can have an API calling into that same AI system that is unknown or not challenged before. You need to identify that you're talking to an AI system, control the flow of that data. And then it's not only about the data, it's also about the user behavior. And user behavior, when you do analytics about user behavior, detecting the anomaly, that actually also is AI, right? Establishing, learning what a normal business process looks like, and identify the anomaly based on what you saw. All these things, they gather AI. And I'm not going to make it an entire product pitch, but it's going to at least a little bit. It doesn't stop with the data. It also goes in the transaction context itself. Network connectivity. How can you optimize network connectivity? By measuring whatever key performance indicator or metric that you can contain and predict in the future based on the data that you received from that. So predictive analysis on a deteriorating network connection, and then alter the path as you see it happen. And then at last, device access intelligence. This is identifying the IoT, which I don't know if you remember, it was in the trends, the second one, which is coming. So prepare. Now, within that portfolio, there's a ton of things we do. I'm not going to go over all of them. I'll make it pleasant for everyone. But I'll do highlight that for data protection, the AI that we use, and if there's time left at the end, it is all about identifying what could be and what should be corporate data, non-corporate data, personal data, non-personal data, and identify the flow where that data is going to. Threat protection is all about preventing the harm happening, identifying attacks, identifying threats, identifying new patterns that aren't detected before, new communication flows that aren't detected before. Generative AI and SaaS, this one we will talk about a little bit more, because that's the control that we have when you talk to things like ChatGPT. And you should be able to talk with ChatGPT. You should be able to become more efficient and more productive as an employee within your corporation. Use the tools that are available, but use them wisely. And I think it's clear that for the entire audience we have here, all of you people are security aware, right? You think about a risk that you have when you talk to certain applications or talk with certain destinations. That risk analysis does not exist in most employees. They just want to do their job. So it's our role to give them the guardrails for them to do their job safely. They shouldn't care what they're dealing with and what data they're sending how to what rate to what location. They should have the guardrails to protect them from doing something wrong. And then SD-WAN optimization, traffic analysis, forecasting of that, and device access intelligence. Cycling through them. How do we do the data protection side of things? We actually try to mimic human behavior, right? Because if you say, well, we can scan passports. I can create a passport using generative AI. We saw that. But what about like sharing personal identifiable information with third parties somewhere else? How do you identify something like that? Well, you need data protection that actually mimics the human brain. And some things, well, some might say, well, we can do that with OCR scanning. And what is that OCR scanning? That's actually reading the text on the card and trying to identify that it is text that can be shared, like a credit card number together with a personal name. That looks like a credit card. However, if you look at the credit card at the bottom right, try to OCR scan that. That's going to be a tough challenge. So what we do is we actually look at the image. We see, oh, there's a photo there, or there's a chip on that. There's a number below, there's a name on it somewhere, and it has a certain size. And that size fits within the criteria of a credit card. So with the high probability, 80% or better, we think this is a credit card. Raindrops, scratched, taped in, it doesn't matter. We think that's a credit card with a high probability factor because we learned from other credit cards. Machine learning image classification. It does not stop at the credit card. It can be anything. It can be an ID. It can be a certificate. It can be a document. It can be a screenshot. It can be a photograph of a whiteboard. All those kind of things, they can all affect your business intelligence or your corporate knowledge to be exfiltrated out into the field. And it doesn't have to be intentional. 90% of the time, it is not intentional. People didn't want to share, but did because they thought it was the thing to do at that time in their job situation right there. How do we use that? By using AI, or how do we do that by using AI? You can now train your own classifier. So the image detection, image recognition, that was already there. Classification of documents with, this looks like a contract, we think it's a contract, it mimics the behavior or the signature of a contract, we know it's a contract. Now you can actually extend that by getting a classifier at your disposal and train that with your own data. Why is that important? Because some might have very specific documents or very specific images or very specific content that cannot be classified easily. And then if you want to do something repetitive and fast, you use artificial intelligence to do that. And then you can train your own classifier to identify that. Moving into generative AI and SaaS applications. And this is where, like not too long ago, there was a question downstairs about, well, you need to protect against SaaS applications because shadow IT is immense. It's true. Shadow IT is a thing that we cannot control. Why? Because shadow IT is the IT that, well, the CIOs call, the business uses, but was not informed about to IT. So the CIO doesn't know what the business does. That's shadow IT, simply put. So what you have is you have what IT knows, corporate applications, O365, the Salesforce, the Workday, the Googles, the Box, the Teams. That's sanctioned IT. IT knows that it's used. Business runs that IT. What we don't know is the shadow IT. And this can be any application. This can be WeTransfer, for example. It's not too long ago that I heard an example that WeTransfer was used to send log files of a firewall from a customer to a service provider. WeTransfer. If anyone has looked at WeTransfer, how they are compliant with standards with data encryption and data storage, it's the last time you're going to use retransfer log files transmission, I just tell you. So what we need to do is gain visibility. Number one, gain application access visibility. Know which applications are in use and identify where the data is flowing. Step one in a remediation process is knowing what is happening. Step two, now you leverage access controls. And access controls, and I don't know if any of you have come across the term zero trust, probably everyone. It's about giving an identity, privileges to a resource. And the privileges should be defined as least privilege. You are only allowed up to that level what you are allowed and no more. So access control about who can do what within the resource, very important. Data detection, identify what data is being transferred towards that application. And this goes for both, right? Not only the sanctioned, but also the unsanctioned IT or the unmanaged IT. And in that category, ChatGPT is, right? It's a business tool. It's being used to respond to emails, but it's not sanctioned by anyone. I can guarantee you that. And then at last, the protection of the flow of the data. Knowing that within your corporate sanctioned IT, you're allowed to put documents, write content, edit documents, make changes. But once you go into ChatGPT or unmanaged side of things, the WeTransfer, you can use the application, but the data cannot flow there. Meaning, if a customer sends you a link over WeTransfer, here are my log files, you can download it. But if you want to reply with the analysis, it will stop you. That's the idea. Privilege towards the resource. This was a good one, right? This is our core business, by the way, just so you know. Moving on. Reporting on the use of the AI apps. Reporting on the use of what you saw in ChatGPT. Very important that you learn what your what your users in the application are doing. And that you can report back with actual, like telemetry, actual data that is, that your users have been using that AI. And make sure that you can identify where risky behavior lies within. Because the risk, it's all about risk containment. And using generative AI is a massive risk today because there are no controls defined. And even worse, there are no governing rules for AI in general, right? The ethical and moral decisions to make with how do you develop your AI, those aren't even written yet. They're still thinking about that. But AI is moving forward, right? So we need to control what we share with the AI before it's too late and it learns things that it shouldn't have. Moving on. User and entity behavioral analytics, also a part that leverages AI. Detecting the anomaly, knowing that what good behavior is and what bad behavior is. Identifying all the different flows of good behavior, identifying the anomaly by putting it out, and adding a risk score or a confidence level towards a user. Making sure that once a user becomes too risky, you can take away privilege. Circling back to zero trust, having an identity, having a privilege, having access to a resource. User behavioral analytics make sure that the least privilege is continuously monitored. And that's also a part of zero trust, continuously monitor the behavior of certain user. And we're not in the business of infringing with privacy. Just so you know, we are invading a little of your privacy, but it's all for security of the data in transit, right? There's no implication of the privacy because it's all applicable to what you could use the acceptable use policy of that data. How do we do that with AI? How do we do that with AI, detecting the anomaly? It's a very massive graph. It's a Kafka law collector, and it identifies from all different sorts, all different locations where the behavior is spotted, identifies the anomaly. Based on a very large amount of very high compute, it costs a lot of money to run it. And actually, I can show you some of that, how it runs. Would you be interested in viewing some live demonstrations around that? So demo. Now, and I'm going to set mirroring. For example, this is what Netscope instance or a Netscope tenant looks like. And it's, as I said, it's a security platform that runs in the cloud. This is the only interface you need for that. So it's a single console for everything behind it. Now what we have, and I'm going to try and zoom out a little because I think it's a little bit large. There we go. If we go to advanced analytics, what is a key point? And this is just a reporting engine. What is a key point that you need to be able to identify traffic flows, to identify content within transactions, and to identify activities within transactions? The key thing is that you open up the communication channel. So from a perspective of security, you have end-to-end security always ensured, right? You have certificate negotiation, but now there's going to be a man in the middle. And that is done by TLS decryption, right? Opening up the transport layer security. Now, we have a thing called an SSL inspection dashboard. If you're a security tool that needs to analyze what you ask ChatGPT, what you send to your colleagues, what you send to your partners, what you send outside, the data you touch, how much of the traffic would you want to have inspected in a rate from 0 to 100%? Everything, right? Hang on, because the Wi-Fi might be a little slow. The SSL inspection rate should be 100%. You need to decrypt whatever you can decrypt. Take note, you don't want to decrypt things that you shouldn't decrypt. For example, financial information of you when talking to your bank over your bank app. That cannot be decrypted because of the way the encryption was generated, and that is called certificate pinning. That is that the application on one end does not allow another certificate authority to impersonate someone else. Sorry?
And you don't have the certificates.
Exactly, we do, and we don't want them either. We don't want to see that. And as you can see, there's some of them, right? And I don't have my glasses, but there we go, PayPal. PayPal, you don't, well, it's not allowed. We can't decrypt, so it passes by. Now, it was time for the demo, right? So I'm going to open up a chat GPT window, just so you can see what's happening. And I just flagged that I only have 3 minutes left. So I'm going to go to chat OpenAI. First of all, what we do here, our platform, by the way, is only we have a client installed. You can see it at the right-hand top side there. That's the only thing you need for Netscope to function, right? Because it's running in cloud. What this does is send the traffic from your workstation to us. That's all. No intelligence required there. It's very lightweight. It just steers traffic. So we see that we have a generative AI notification, which we as a user gives us awareness, but we can still continue. And in ChatGPT, and this is the regular, free ChatGPT, because I don't like to pay money for ChatGPT. And I'm going to ask them a question. Please write me some Python code to register users. And I use the word please, right? Because you need to be polite against AI. At some point, they will run you. So make sure that they remember you were the guy that was polite. If I copy the code, this is source code, right? This is Python source code. And I have not trained my model to detect anything specific as to my company. This is just me going to see, is this source code or not? I'm going to do exactly what they did at Samsung. Can you please optimize this code? And I paste the code. And now, ba-doom, you shall not paste source code into ChatGPT. You can use ChatGPT, you can reply to emails using ChatGPT, generate messages in ChatGPT. You shall not pass intellectual property into ChatGPT. Because the question can be asked back to ChatGPT, well, how does Netscope fix this problem? That code will come back right as the answer. How much time do I have left? Seconds? It's over? So that was it. I'm sorry, there's no time left. I hope it was interesting. I'll be here for the remainder of, I think, a couple of hours. If you want to see more, because there is a lot more, feel free to come find us at the booth.
Yep, thank you so much. Thanks everyone.